In the hushed stillness, the gentle morning sunlight streamed through the stained-glass windows of the ancient chapel, gilding the gleaming wooden pews. The fragrant scent of tuberose and white candles wafted through the air, blending with the soft, melodious music, creating a scene of solemn and breathtaking warmth. Today, the momentous day had arrived, the day when David Matthews, a distinguished middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair but eyes still gleaming with a rugged charm, would officially marry Emily Carter, a young, beautiful woman with a smile as radiant as the sun. Everyone believed that this would be a new beginning, a happy chapter written after the losses and loneliness David had endured following the passing of his beloved wife. Amidst the atmosphere filled with joy and well-wishes, there was an 8-year-old boy with large, round eyes, harboring a deep unease. This was Ethan Matthews, David's son. Ethan was not like other children. He possessed an unusually keen intuition, an extraordinary ability to discern right from wrong, and above all, a brave heart, always ready to stand up for those he loved. Today, in his small black suit, Ethan looked handsome and adorable, like a little angel. He had been entrusted with an important task, to present the wedding rings, symbols of eternal love, to his father and the woman who was about to become his stepmother. But hidden beneath his obedient demeanor was a heavy heart, a burden of secrets that the little boy was struggling to bear. David stood at the end of the aisle, his jet-black tuxedo further highlighting his elegance and poise. His eyes were fixed on the center aisle, where the woman he loved was about to appear. A happy smile gently bloomed on his lips, but somewhere in the depths of his eyes, a hint of anticipation lingered. Beside his father, Ethan clutched the crimson velvet cushion holding the wedding rings. His small hands trembled slightly, his eyes constantly darting towards his father, then back to the doors where Emily would enter. The stark contrast in expression between the hopeful father and the anxious son did not go unnoticed by a few close relatives who sensed that something was amiss. Soft strains of a hymn filled the air, and the intricately carved wooden doors slowly creaked open. A burst of brilliant light flooded in, enveloping the radiant figure of Emily. In her pristine white wedding gown, meticulously embroidered with lace and adorned with sparkling crystals, Emily glided gracefully like a goddess. Her radiant smile captivated every gaze, melting every heart, except for the small, throbbing heart of Ethan. The little boy was not fooled by her dazzling appearance. His sharp eyes were fixed on his father, on the trusting smile he gave Emily, and the unease in his heart grew more intense. The ring cushion in Ethan's hands felt heavier than ever. As Emily approached the altar, David could not hide his happiness, gently kissing her forehead. The short, loving exchanges between them whispered through the air, reaching the ears of those nearby like a sweet melody. But for Ethan, each passing moment felt like a knife twisting deeper into his heart. The growing impatience and anxiety urged him to act, to prevent something terrible from happening. The memories, the fragmented pieces of information he had gathered over time, now suddenly coalesced into a dark picture, a horrifying truth that he could not silently ignore. The day David brought Emily home was a late afternoon, following long days of mourning. Ethan still vividly remembered the feeling of emptiness and loss when his mother's presence was no longer in the house. The arrival of Emily, a strange woman with a bright smile and a sweet voice, stirred a bit of curiosity in him, mixed with a touch of apprehension. David introduced Emily to Ethan in a gentle voice, full of hope for a brighter future. Ethan looked at Emily, trying to find some sign that this woman would love and care for him as his mother had. The initial impression of Emily was quite good. She gently stroked his head, asked about his school, and even promised to bake cookies with him on the weekend. A small ray of hope flickered in Ethan's lonely heart. But then, as time passed, Ethan began to notice strange changes in Emily's demeanor. When David was around, she was the perfect woman, gentle, thoughtful, and always attentive to Ethan. She asked about his homework, played games with him, and always praised him in front of David. But when David was away from home, or when they were alone together, Emily became a completely different person. The smile vanished, replaced by a cold and annoyed look. Her usually sweet voice became sharp and sarcastic. Ethan still clearly remembered one evening when the three of them were having dinner. David happily recounted a new project at work, while Emily lovingly served him food. Ethan timidly asked Emily about a difficult math problem from school, but instead of receiving help, he only got an annoyed frown and a curt reply, "Figure it out yourself, don't bother the adults." The stark difference in Emily's behavior left Ethan feeling confused and deeply hurt. He couldn't understand how the same person could change her attitude so quickly. David, lost in his newfound happiness, seemed oblivious to this change. He always praised Emily as a wonderful woman, and Ethan could only remain silent, feeling increasingly lonely and out of place in his own home. The harsh and demeaning words Emily directed at Ethan when David wasn't listening became more and more frequent. She often criticized him for being clumsy, slow, and even compared him unfavorably to other children in a mean-spirited way. "You're so useless," she said to Ethan once when he accidentally broke a vase, "can't you even do something simple right?" These words were like daggers piercing Ethan's young heart, eroding his self-confidence and making him feel truly like a bad child. Gradually, Ethan became more withdrawn, less talkative, and always tried to avoid Emily whenever possible. He felt as if an invisible wall was growing between him and his father and the woman who was slowly taking over his father's heart. One particular incident etched fear and hurt deeply into Ethan's mind. One day, he accidentally spilled his glass of orange juice on Emily's new dress. Instead of a gentle scolding, Emily flew into a rage. She screamed at Ethan, pushing him hard, causing him to fall to the floor. The furious look in Emily's eyes terrified Ethan. "How many times have I told you? You little brat. If you ever dare to dirty my things again, I'll make you regret it." Emily's threatening words echoed in the silent space, planting a deep terror in Ethan's heart. He could only silently endure, tears streaming down his cheeks. From that incident on, Ethan became even more afraid of Emily and always tried to keep his distance from her. Ethan had tried to talk to his father about Emily's strange behavior, about the harsh words and the rough actions she had directed at him. But David, blinded by love, did not believe his son. He thought Ethan was just having difficulty accepting a new woman in their lives, and that his stories were just childish jealousy. "Don't think badly of Emily," David told Ethan sternly, "she's a good person. You just need to try to get along with her." His father's indifference and disbelief left Ethan feeling incredibly disappointed and helpless. He knew something was wrong, but no one believed him. One afternoon, while playing hide-and-seek in the garden, Ethan accidentally overheard a phone conversation between Emily and a friend. Emily's words shattered his heart. "That little brat. He's just an unwanted nuisance," Emily said with a voice full of disgust. "After David and I get married, I'll find a way to send him to some boarding school. I don't want to waste my time and money on him." These cruel words confirmed Ethan's long-held suspicions. He not only felt abandoned but also realized that Emily did not truly love him or his father. But what truly horrified Ethan and made him determined to expose Emily's true colors was another overheard phone conversation, just a few days before the wedding. That night, Ethan woke up in the middle of the night from a nightmare. He quietly stepped out of his room and heard Emily talking on the phone in the living room. Curious and worried, Ethan hid behind the wall and listened. What he heard made his blood run cold. Emily was talking to a man named Mark, and the content of their conversation revealed a dark and ruthless plot. "Phase 2 will begin after the wedding," Emily said in a cold voice. "I've researched it thoroughly. David's life insurance policy is substantial. After everything is settled, we'll have a huge sum of money. Everything is planned perfectly, Mark. Just wait until that day, then we'll get rid of that idiot." Words like Phase 2, life insurance policy, money, scam, and get rid of David echoed in Ethan's head, creating a feeling of utter terror. The little boy couldn't believe what he had just heard. Emily, the woman his father loved, the woman who was about to become his stepmother, was plotting to harm his father just for money. Ethan's small heart clenched with fear and worry for his father's safety. He knew he had to do something, had to stop this evil plot before it was too late. After that terrifying night, Ethan became more vigilant than ever. He began to notice Emily's shady behavior. She often texted secretly, went out at odd hours, and always seemed flustered and evasive when Ethan came near. He also remembered one time, when he walked into his father's study, Ethan saw Emily quickly shutting down David's laptop. When he asked, Emily just brushed it off, saying she was looking at some personal documents. The suspicion in Ethan's heart grew stronger. He decided to investigate the truth himself. Taking advantage of Emily's absence, Ethan sneaked into his father's study and tried to open the laptop. Luckily, he guessed the password his father often used correctly. After searching for a while, Ethan found an online insurance website with detailed information about David's life insurance policy, with none other than Emily Carter as the beneficiary. In a hidden photo folder, Ethan also found intimate pictures of Emily with the man named Mark, not like the relationship between ordinary friends. All this evidence further solidified Ethan's certainty about Emily's dark plot. The night before the wedding, Ethan tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. The horrifying images from the overheard conversation kept replaying in his mind. He imagined his father being harmed, and fear gripped his small heart once again. In his restless sleep, Ethan dreamed he was running in the dark, trying to shout a warning to his father, but his voice seemed stuck in his throat. He woke up gasping for air, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Looking out the window, the pale moonlight illuminated the silent surroundings. Ethan knew he couldn't hesitate any longer. Tomorrow, if he didn't act, it would be too late. He had to save his father, no matter the danger he might face. Back in the solemn atmosphere of the chapel, Ethan could clearly feel the pressure weighing down on his small shoulders. The hymn still played softly, but now it sounded like an urgent plea, a warning. He looked at his father standing at the altar, the happy smile still on his face. Ethan knew this was his last chance. He had to speak the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As David and Emily exchanged vows, as his father prepared to slip the wedding ring onto Emily's finger, Ethan could no longer contain himself. A shout tore through the dignified silence, "Stop!" Ethan's sudden shout echoed through the chapel, causing everyone to freeze in astonishment. Surprised and confused gazes turned towards the little boy standing rooted to the spot beside his father. Emily, who had been smiling radiantly, stopped, her smile freezing on her lips. David spun around, looking at his son with utter bewilderment. "Ethan, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice full of concern. Emily tried to regain her composure, forcing a strained smile and saying, "The little rascal is probably just being mischievous, dear. Don't mind him." But Ethan didn't waver. He looked directly into his father's eyes, his voice trembling but filled with determination. "Dad, you can't marry her. She's lying to you. She wants to hurt you." Ethan's accusation landed like a bomb in the quiet space. Whispers and murmurs began to rise among the guests. Emily's face paled, and she tried to defend herself. "What nonsense is this child talking about? David, don't believe him." But David had begun to have doubts. His gaze shifted from bewilderment to questioning, and finally to a look of inner turmoil. He looked at Ethan, trying to find a reasonable explanation. "Ethan, do you have any proof? Why are you saying such things?" Ethan took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. "I overheard her talking on the phone with a man named Mark. She said she would hurt you after the wedding to get the insurance money. I also saw pictures of her with that man. They weren't just friends." Ethan's words, though naive, carried a terrifying truth, causing the atmosphere in the chapel to become intensely strained. The hushed whispers grew louder. All eyes were now fixed on Emily, awaiting an explanation. Emily's facade finally crumbled. Her beautiful face contorted, her usual radiant smile twisted into a bitter sneer. "You little brat. What do you even know? I was just disciplining your spoiled son," she snarled, her eyes flashing angrily at Ethan. Hearing Emily's venomous words, David finally realized the truth. Pain and fury were evident on his face. "Emily, what my son is saying, is it true?" His voice choked with emotion. Emily knew that everything had been exposed. She no longer tried to deny it. With an angry cry, she turned and fled from the altar, her pristine white wedding dress dragging behind her. Chaos erupted in the chapel. Shouts and confused chatter filled the air. David quickly pulled out his phone and called the police, reporting the murder plot he had just uncovered. While waiting for the police to arrive, he held Ethan tightly in his arms, a silent acknowledgement of the storm they had just weathered together. In the midst of the commotion, Ethan's sharp eyes scanned the crowd and spotted a familiar face, Mark, the man Emily had been talking to on the phone. He pointed him out to the arriving police officers, and Mark was promptly apprehended. The wedding of the century had been shattered, not by a dramatic outburst of a scorned lover, but by the courageous act of an 8-year-old boy who dared to unveil the darkness hidden behind an angelic smile, ultimately saving his father from a sinister fate.